A single photo changed everything. But the story began 6 years earlier on a sticky July afternoon in 2018. Alex, 22, sunburned, and still wearing the same faded college t-shirt he'd owned since freshman year, balanced on a wobbly ladder outside a small white cottage, hammer in one hand, a crooked porch step in the other. He cursed under his breath when the nail bent sideways for the third time. From the open window drifted the smell of fresh lemonade and the unmistakable click of ice against glass. Kid, if you keep sweet-talking that wood like that, it'll file a restraining order, came a voice, dry as the sawdust at his feet. Eleanor leaned out, silver hair twisted into a loose knot, eyes the color of storm clouds. She held out a sweating glass. Drink, then try the hammer like you mean it. Alex climbed down, wiped sawdust on his jeans, and took the lemonade. One sip and his eyebrows shot up real lemons, a hint of mint, just enough sugar to cut the bite. You always this bossy with free labor? He asked. Only when the labor as cute and clueless, she shot back. Jamie, Alex's best friend since move-in day at State, appeared on the main house porch waving a bag of burgers. Graham, stop flirting with my roommate. Food is getting cold. Eleanor rolled her eyes. Your roommate couldn't have flirted his way out of a paper bag. I am educating. That was the first time Alex laughed so hard lemonade came out his nose. The cottage sat behind Jamie's childhood home like a secret. Inside, books overflowed every shelf travel memoirs, dog-eared paperbacks, a whole row of National Geographics from the 70s. A faded map of Europe on the wall was dotted with pushpins and handwritten notes. Best Gelato Florence, 1973. Slept in a castle Scotland, 1976. Alex traced the pins while Eleanor refilled his glass. You actually did all this? He asked. Backpacked with $50 and a train pass. Met a prince in Monaco, nice guy, terrible dancer. She tapped a pin near Athens. Got proposed to on a ferry. Said no. Best decision I ever made. Jamie yelled from the driveway about a pickup basketball game. Alex lingered. You ever miss it? The traveling? Every day, Eleanor said. But roots aren't cages if you water them right. That night, after burgers and a brutal loss at Horseshoes, Alex found himself back at the cottage, helping Eleanor carry in grocery bags. She handed him a six-pack of the cheap beer he and Jamie drank in dorms. Payment for services rendered, she said. Dante, tell Jamie I enable underage drinking. I am 22. Still a baby. They sat on the porch steps. Crickets sawed the dark. Eleanor cracked open a beer with a bottle opener shaped like the Eiffel Tower. So, what's your damage, Alex? Why were you always fixing things that aren't yours? He shrugged. Parents died when I was 16. Fixing stuff feels useful. Eleanor was quiet long enough for the ice in her glass to melt. Then, useful S overrated. Try joyful. The next weekend, Alex showed up with a new hammer and a box of nails that wouldn't bend. Eleanor met him with coffee strong enough to wake the dead and a challenge. Beat her at Scrabble or owe her a month of lawn mowing. He lost 412 to 87. She wrote Alex owes Graham on a sticky note and slapped it on the fridge like a trophy. Summer blurred. Alex mowed, painted, replaced the cottage's leaky faucet. Eleanor paid him in stories and sarcasm. She taught him to make pie crust flaky, to parallel park a stick shift, to swear in 3 languages. He taught her how to send emojis. She sent Jamie a string of eggplants that caused a family group chat meltdown. One August evening, thunder cracked overhead. Jamie was at a concert. Alex dashed through the downpour to check the cottage windows. Eleanor stood on the porch in bare feet, arms wide, face tilted to the rain. Come on, coward, she called, Sky-S washing the world clean. He stepped out. Rain soaked them both. Lightning flashed. For a second, her silhouette looked 25, fearless. She grabbed his hand, spun him like they were on a dance floor. They slipped, landed laughing in the wet grass. When the storm passed, they lay side by side, breathing hard, watching clouds race. See, she said, joyful. Alex didn't go home that night until the stars came out. By September, the sticky note on the fridge had been replaced. Alex fixes better than he spells. Jamie noticed nothing. To him, Alex was just the guy who always volunteered for chores. To Eleanor, he was the kid who listened like her stories were oxygen. To Alex, the cottage had become the only place the world made sense. Neither of them saw the shift coming. Not yet, but every Saturday, when the hammer rang against nails and lemonade glasses clinked, something quiet and stubborn took root in the space between sawdust and sarcasm. Something that would, years later, set the internet on fire. The sticky note on the fridge evolved into a running scoreboard. Alex S. losses at Scrabble piled up 23 straight games by the end of 2019. Eleanor kept the tally in red marker, adding tiny crowns next to her name. He retaliated by hiding her favorite pen and replacing it with one that wrote only in glitter gel. She responded by baking his favorite lemon bars with salt instead of sugar. Their war of small sabotages became the rhythm of every weekend. Jamie graduated, moved to the city, and rented a shoebox apartment that smelled perpetually of takeout. Alex stayed behind to finish his engineering degree, commuting 2 hours each way. The cottage became his halfway house. He kept a duffel in the guest room and a toothbrush in the upstairs bath. Eleanor upgraded the coffee from instant to a French press and left a spare key under the ceramic frog by the door. "In case you ever need quiet," she said. He used it more than his own apartment. Winter arrived with frozen pipes and a broken furnace. Alex spent 3 nights on the cottage floor, wrapped in quilts, coaxing the ancient boiler back to life. Eleanor cooked chili thick enough to stand a spoon in and read aloud from a tattered copy of Kerouac, while he bled radiators. When the heat finally kicked on, she draped a blanket over both their shoulders and declared victory. Steam fogged the windows. Their breath mingled in the small space between the couch cushions. Neither moved away. Spring brought garden planning. Alex built raised beds from reclaimed barnwood. Eleanor sketched layouts on graph paper, arguing for tomatoes in the sunniest corner and basil within arm's reach of the kitchen door. They planted on a Saturday that smelled of turned earth and possibility. Dirt streaked their faces. Sweat glued Alex's shirt to his back. When the last seedling was tucked in, Eleanor produced 2 sweating bottles of Mexican beer and clinked his against hers. To green things and stubborn people, she toasted. He drank, then leaned over and wiped a smudge of soil from her cheek with his thumb. She caught his wrist, held it a second longer than necessary, then let go. Summer nights grew longer. Jamie visited less, swallowed by startup hours and new girlfriends. The cottage porch became their universe. They strung fairy lights along the railing and argued over playlists Eleanor S. Sinatra versus Alex S. Indie rock. She taught him to two-step on the warped boards. He taught her to moonwalk and nearly sent her tumbling into the hydrangeas. Laughter echoed across the yard long after the neighbors' lights went out. One July evening, the power failed during a heat wave. Candles flickered on every surface. Eleanor found an old battery radio and tuned it to a jazz station. Alex opened the last bottle of rosé from the fridge. They sat on the floor, backs against the couch, knees touching. The air smelled of melted wax and warm wood. She told him about the summer she turned 25 and hitchhiked from Lisbon to Istanbul with nothing but a guitar and a fake ID. He told her about the night he hotwired his dad's old Mustang at 17 just to feel the engine roar. Their stories braided together like smoke. When the song changed to something slow and minor, Eleanor rested her head on his shoulder. Alex's heart hammered so loud he was sure she could hear it. He turned his face into her hair lavender shampoo, and something faintly citrus. She lifted her chin. Their first kiss tasted like rosé and candle smoke, soft and inevitable. The power surged back on at that exact moment. The lights blazed, the fridge hummed, but neither of them noticed. After that, the cottage held new gravity. Alex still fixed things, replaced the gutter, patched the roof, but now his hands lingered when he passed her a screwdriver. Eleanor still baked, but she left the top button of her blouse undone and hummed while she measured flour. They developed rituals: morning coffee on the porch swing, evening walks to the creek where fireflies stitched the dark. She wore his hoodie when the nights cooled. He kept her reading glasses in his shirt pocket like a talisman. They never labeled it. Words like boyfriend or girlfriend felt borrowed from someone else's life. Instead, they spoke in glances and small thefts, his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through doorways, her fingers brushing sawdust from his hair. Jamie remained in the city, texting memes and complaining about spreadsheets. The secret lived quietly in the space between porch boards and garden rows, growing like the tomatoes they watered every dawn. By the following spring, the raised beds overflowed. They harvested the first ripe tomato together, slicing it thick and sprinkling salt from the shaker Eleanor kept on the windowsill. Juice ran down their wrists. Alex licked a drop from her thumb without thinking. She laughed, low and delighted, then kissed the corner of his mouth where salt lingered. The sun dipped behind the trees, painting everything gold. In that moment, the 44 years between them felt like a technicality someone else had invented. They still played Scrabble. Eleanor still won. But now, when she laid down a triple-word score, Alex leaned across the board and kissed her until the timer buzzed. The scoreboard on the fridge gained a new column: kisses instead of points. The first crack appeared on a Friday in late October 2021. Jamie drove in from the city unannounced, craving his grandmother's lasagna and a break from fluorescent office lights. He let himself through the side gate, humming, grocery bags swinging. The cottage windows glowed warm against the dusk. Through the screen door, he saw Alex and Eleanor slow dancing in the kitchen, her cheek against his chest, his hand spanning the curve of her back. Sinatra crooned from the ancient radio. Jamie froze. The bag slipped from his fingers. A jar of marinara shattered red across the porch boards. Alex spun at the sound. Eleanor's eyes widened. Jamie's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Graham? The single word cracked like ice. He stared at Alex as if seeing a stranger wearing his best friend's face. Then he turned and walked back to his car without another syllable. Tires spit gravel all the way to the road. Silence swallowed the cottage. Eleanor sank onto a kitchen chair, hands trembling. Alex knelt, gathered glass shards into a dustpan, movements mechanical. When the floor was clean, he looked up. I should go after him. She nodded, but neither moved. The lasagna burned forgotten in the oven. Jamie didn't answer calls or texts for 6 days. On the 7th, Alex drove to the city at dawn, parked outside Jamie's apartment, and waited on the stoop until his friend emerged bleary-eyed with coffee. Jamie stopped short. You have some nerve. Alex stood slowly. I love her. Jamie's laugh was sharp. She is 70. You're 27. This isn't a love, it is a crisis. He shouldered past, slammed the car door, and peeled away. That night, Alex posted the photo 2 hands, one veined and spotted with age, one calloused from tools, both circled by matching silver bands. Caption, Love doesn't count the years. He tagged Eleanor. Within an hour, notifications exploded. Screenshots ricocheted across Twitter, Reddit, TikTok. Headlines bloomed like bruises. Best friend steals grandma, reverse cougar scandal, age gap groom goes viral. Comments poured in some hearts, most knives. Eleanor's bridge club canceled Tuesday games. A neighbor left a passive-aggressive note about decorum. Her inbox filled with strangers calling her predator and cradle robber. Alex's coworkers whispered behind cubicle walls. They stopped reading after the first 100 messages and turned off notifications. Still, the internet kept screaming. They retreated to the cottage, curtains drawn. Alex cooked eggs one-handed, while Eleanor stared at the garden, tomatoes rotting on the vine. He set a plate in front of her. She pushed it away. Ivy survived worse, she said, voice thin. But not with you in the crossfire. Alex took her hand. We re-in it together. Jamie returned on a rainy Thursday, soaked and unshaven. He stood in the doorway dripping. I can just sleep. Tell me this is a prank. Eleanor poured coffee without asking. Alex slid a chair out. Jamie sat. Words tumbled anger, disgust, fear for his grandmother's heart, fear for his friend E.E. Future. Eleanor listened until he ran out of steam. Then she spoke, calm as November air. Your grandfather died when I was 52. I thought joy was finished. Alex reminded me it's not a limited resource. Jamie S. eyes filled. He looked at Alex. You hurt her? I end you. Alex nodded. Jamie exhaled, long and shaky, then reached for the coffee. Outside, the storm kept raging. Their story hit morning talk shows, spawned think pieces, inspired fan art of silver-haired brides. Hate mail arrived in neat envelopes. So did letters from widows and widowers, thanking them for proof that love could still knock after 70. Eleanor framed one. You gave me permission to want again. Inside the cottage, the three of them rebuilt on cracked foundation. Jamie stayed for dinner, ate 2 helpings of slightly charred lasagna, and left with a Tupperware of leftovers. The internet still howled, but the porch light stayed on, steady against the dark. The morning after Jamie's second visit, Alex found Eleanor at the kitchen table with a legal pad and a red pen. She had drawn 2 columns, for and against. Under for, she listed Jamie's tentative nod, the stack of supportive letters, and the garden still producing despite neglect. Under against, she wrote Media Circus, Bridge Club Exile, and the word grandson 3 times underlined. She tapped the pen against her lip, then crossed out the entire against column with a single decisive stroke. We're not voting on feelings, she said. Alex kissed the top of her head and started the coffee. They set a date, November 12th, the Saturday after the first frost. No planners, no Pinterest boards. Eleanor chose the vineyard behind the cottage because the vines turned gold in autumn, and the owner owed her a favor from 1987. Alex built an arbor from cedar scraps left over from the raised beds. Jamie showed up with a pickup full of folding chairs and a bottle of bourbon for courage. He and Alex sanded the wood side by side, shoulders brushing, conversation limited to grit counts and stain colors. Invitations went out on thick cream cardstock, simple black ink, no emojis, 30 names. Half the Bridge Club sent regrets. The other half RSVP'd yes, and asked if they should bring dessert. Eleanor's reply was the same to all. Bring yourselves. We have cake. Alex's coworkers sent a group text of thumbs-up emojis and a gift card to a hardware store. The internet kept churning out hot takes, but the couple stopped refreshing. 2 weeks before the wedding, Eleanor's hip gave out while she reached for a high shelf of preserves. The doctor scheduled replacement surgery for January. She spent 3 days on the couch with ice packs and a scowl. Alex slept on the floor beside her, waking every time she shifted. On the 4th morning, she announced, I am walking that aisle even if I have to crawl. Jamie arrived with a cane carved from the old apple tree in the yard. He had sanded it smooth and etched their initials near the handle. Eleanor tested it, leaned her weight, and smiled for the first time since the fall. The night before the ceremony, rain tapped the tin roof like impatient fingers. Jamie strung fairy lights along the arbor, while Alex pressed Eleanor's dress cream wool, long sleeves, hem hitting mid-calf. She watched from the doorway, cane in one hand, bourbon in the other. You iron better than you spell, she teased. Jamie snorted. Alex flipped him off without looking up. The 3 of them laughed until the bourbon was gone. November 12th dawned cold and clear. Guests arrived in coats and scarves, breath fogging. The vineyard rows stretched like golden hallways. Eleanor walked the aisle on Jamie's arm, cane tapping rhythm, skirt brushing fallen leaves. Alex waited under the arbor in a charcoal suit, hands clasped to keep them from shaking. When she reached him, Jamie placed her hand in Alex's and stepped back. The officiant, a retired judge who had once climbed Kilimanjaro with Eleanor, kept it short. Vows were their own words, no script. Alex promised to keep fixing things and to let her win at Scrabble only half the time. Eleanor promised to keep teaching him joy and to stop salting his lemon bars. Rings slid on without hesitation, plain silver, worn soft already from weeks of secret wearing. Jamie's toast cracked only once. To the two most stubborn people I know, may your arguments stay small and your love stay loud. Glasses clinked. Someone started the music. Sinatra, of course. Alex and Eleanor danced between the vines, while guests formed a loose circle, stamping feet against the chill. The internet caught wind. Drone footage hit TikTok by sunset, racking up millions of views. Comments flipped from outrage to tears. The couple never checked. Cake was lemon with blackberry jam, cut with the same knife Eleanor had used for 50 years. They fed each other careful bites, then smeared frosting on Jamie's nose when he leaned in for a photo. Night fell. The fairy lights glowed like low stars. Guests drifted away with jars of homemade jam as favors. The three of them, Alex, Eleanor, Jamie, stood under the arbor long after the last car left, arms linked, watching headlights disappear down the dirt road. The vineyard smelled of crushed grapes and wood smoke. Eleanor leaned on her cane, head on Alex's shoulder. Jamie squeezed her other hand. No one spoke. None of them needed to. Snow fell soft and steady the morning they brought Lily home from the hospital. Alex carried the car seat while Jamie held the door, both men moving like they'd rehearsed it for years. Eleanor waited inside, hip freshly healed, arms already aching to hold the tiny bundle. Mara followed, exhausted and glowing, clutching the hospital blanket like a trophy. The cottage smelled of cinnamon rolls and wood smoke. The crib cedar, hand-built, sanded smooth, stood ready in the living room corner. Lily blinked at the fairy lights strung year-round along the beams and yawned a perfect pink yawn. Eleanor took her first, pressing a kiss to the downy head. "Welcome to the chaos, little root," she whispered. Jamie's eyes filled. Alex pretended to check the diaper bag so no one would see his. Spring arrived with mud and miracles. Lily learned to grip fingers first Eleanor S., then Alex S., then the dog S tail when the golden retriever puppy arrived in May. They named him Sinatra because he howled along to every record. The garden doubled in size. Alex built a sandbox from the old raised bed scraps. Jamie installed a tire swing from the ancient oak. Mara planted peas along the fence so Lily could watch them climb. Eleanor sat in her rocker, directing traffic with a sun hat and a whistle, hip finely painless. She typed the final pages of her children's book on the porch, pausing to applaud every time Lily pulled herself to standing against the coffee table. Summer meant creek days and bare feet. Alex engineered a shallow pool from river stones, so Lily could splash without drifting. Eleanor taught her to blow dandelion seeds. Jamie taught her to skip stones badly, but with enthusiasm. Mara captured it all on her phone, posting only to the private family album. The public Instagram stayed quiet, a single annual post on their anniversary. A photo under the arbor. Vines heavy with grapes. Everyone squinting into the sun. The caption never changed. Still here, still choosing. By Lily's first birthday, the cottage had fully transformed. The guest room became a nursery painted the soft yellow of farmhouse butter. Bookshelves overflowed with board books alongside Eleanor's memoirs. The fridge door was a collage of fingerprints, ultrasound prints, and a sonogram of the next baby Mara S., due in December. Jamie hung a growth chart on the pantry door, marking Lily at 12 months with a sunflower sticker. Alex added a second line lower down for the dog, who refused to be left out. Autumn brought the second wedding anniversary and the vineyard's golden hour. They renewed vows again, barefoot this time. Lily toddling between them, clutching a dandelion bouquet. Jamie officiated, voice steady, reading from a crumpled index card. "Alex, you promised to keep fixing things. Eleanor, you promised to keep winning at Scrabble. You are both terrible liars, and I love you for it." They kissed while Lily clapped sticky hands and Sinatra barked at a squirrel. Mara filmed on one phone, live streamed to no one. The moment belonged only to them. Winter holidays layered the cottage in light and noise. The Christmas tree scraped the ceiling again, decorated with ornaments spanning 4 generations. A clay handprint from Jamie S. kindergarten, a silver rattle for Lily, a tiny cedar arbor carved by Alex. Under the tree sat a quilt Mara had sewn from everyone's sold t-shirts, Alex S. college logo, Eleanor S. travel scarf, Jamie S. first marathon bib. They opened it last, spreading it across the couch where 3 generations piled under it to watch the fire. Lily fell asleep on Eleanor's chest, thumb in mouth. Sinatra curled at their feet. Outside, snow muffled the world. Inside, the only sound was breathing. Years folded into each other like quilt squares. Lily S. first sentence was more Gigi, demanded while pointing at the cookie jar. Alex taught her to hammer nails at age 4. She built a birdhouse that leaned like the Tower of Pisa. Eleanor published the children's book, The Grandma Who Flew Kites, with her best friend S. Friend, and read it at the local library, while Lily sat in the front row, crown askew. Jamie and Mara added a boy, Finn, who arrived screaming and never really stopped. The cottage gained bunk beds, a second high chair, and a chalkboard wall covered in Lily S. artwork and Finn S. enthusiastic scribbles. The garden became legendary. Neighbors stopped by not just for jam, but for stories. Eleanor held court from her rocker, hip long forgotten, spinning tales of backpacking Europe, while Lily braided dandelions into her silver hair. Alex expanded the farm stand into a proper shed, complete with a chalkboard menu and a jar for pay what feels right. Proceeds funded college funds and dog treats in equal measure. On quiet evenings, when the children finally slept and Jamie and Mara drove home with car seats and leftovers, Alex and Eleanor returned to the porch swing. The boards creaked familiar under their weight. Fireflies stitched the dark. She wore his hoodie now, sleeves rolled to the elbow. He kept her reading glasses in his shirt pocket like always. The vineyard stretched beyond, rows heavy with fruit, roots deep in soil, that had learned to hold whatever love dared to grow. They did not speak much anymore. They did not need to. The cottage breathed around them, bookshelves full, fridge covered in drawings, cribs traded for big kid beds. Somewhere inside, Lily dreamed of sunflowers taller than houses. Finn dreamed of trucks. One August night, the fairy lights flickered on at dusk. Alex poured 2 glasses of the Vineyard S. First Vintage, labeled simply Roots 2025. Eleanor raised hers, to stubborn love and the joy it grows. They clinked. Lily's voice floated from an open window, singing off-key to Sinatra the dog. The swing moved in slow arcs, carrying them forward and back through every season still to come. The world once shaken had settled into the steady, glorious rhythm of a family that had refused every limit and built a life wide enough for all of them.